Welcome, welcome everyone to the I Am Transformed show where we interview real people with real transformations. If your own fears and insecurities are hindering you from pursuing your dreams, the wait is over. When you can change your mindset, you can change your life. So go after the life that you desire and deserve. I am your host, Dr. Veronica Outlaw, and I am here to help you proclaim I am transformed. Today, we have a very special guest, an amazing guest, Jacent, who will be sharing her amazing financial transformation testimony. Now, she's a millennial who has exhibited a smart money mindset in order to pay off over 90,000. That's right, $90,000 in debt. She tripled her income. She secured her dream job. And I mean, she's going to be dropping some true gems on how to live the life that you desire without debt. Now, Jacent was born in Uganda. She was raised in Las Vegas. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist by day, and by night, she teaches motivated millennials how to get out of debt and live their best lives. And Jacent is going to share her story with us with the goal of motivating, inspiring, and most importantly, educating you on creating a plan of daily actions that you can take towards meeting your financial goals. Miss Jacent, how are you, my dear?
I'm well. I'm trying not to get choked up. You didn't warn me about your intro video. I'm like, I am transformed. I
You are transformed. That's why you are on this show. When I saw you on another podcast, I said I have to reach out to her because
am.
it was such an amazing story. So I thank you for accepting the invitation. And we're just going to talk like two girlfriends tonight.
Yes,
Um,
do it.
yeah. So tell us about yourself and what you do.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, I was born in Uganda, but raised in Las Vegas. And by profession, I'm a mental health professional. So I have a private practice that works with women of color on anxiety, depression, trauma recovery, and life. Because life is challenging. And I also coach. So I see clients that are either in or out of state. And I taught at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas for 5 years in the classes of personal growth and development, multicultural issues and families, successful couples, and I train the clinicians in the graduate program there. And so I wear a few different hats because I like to keep myself busy. And then in the process of my own personal finance journey, really just kind of getting to the point after a series of losses and going through what I call a grief storm that I came to and recognized kind of the wreckage from that storm, which was over $70,000 worth of student loan and credit card debt. And I recognized that I had a decision to make. I could keep going down the path that I was going, knowing what that would look like, or decide to try something different and see what happened. And it was what led us to being here having this conversation now, just deciding that I wanted to be out of debt because it was not going to lead to me living the life that I know I deserve and desire. And I stuck to the plan that I created, and it yielded good results. And in the process, I shared on social media, and other people were motivated and inspired by me and my journey, which I started my journey for myself. I didn't think anyone would really care much or anything like that, and so then I'm like, okay, I think maybe sometimes we're given our experiences to support other people's growth as well. First it transforms us, and then it can help to transform other people. So yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation.
Good, good, good. So I understand the student loan. Talk about your credit card debt. What type of things were you purchasing to, um, you know, compound that debt?
A whole lot of nothing, like I made myself do an audit of my spending, which I highly recommend everyone do on some kind of regular basis. So I went through my statements of my credit cards because I'm like, how did I get in like $20,000 worth of credit card debt? Like, how did we get here? Because I'm looking around my house and I don't see nothing that would represent or value that. So when I went through my statements, honestly, it was a whole lot of nothing. Like food, Target runs, every time you go to Walgreens, it's at least $50. I'm like, it's just Walgreens, but then there's
Wow.
all this stuff that you find. So really, it was just complacency. I was paying for being complacent, paying
Mm,
big bucks, and so really, it really wasn't it wasn't anything significant. It was these little like death by 1,000 cuts that added up to being over $20,000. And my credit cards were what I paid off first. What I really recognized was that I had had credit cards prior to that. I had maybe one or two. I got a Southwest card, right, to get points and all of the fun rewards. And
Right.
within a year, I think within the year of getting the Southwest card, my credit card debt doubled. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
Wow, Jacent.
I can laugh about it now, but before I was crying. I
Wow.
was like,
What tools did you use to actually track those expenses? Because like I know my credit union, my bank has a feature where you could track it. There's like a graph chart that you can track what you're spending and what you're spending it on. It categorizes it like shopping, food. I can't remember all the expenses, but it has a chart that's a visual flow chart. Were you using some type of app or software or other tools to kind of track, or were you just kind of pen and paper?
so when I was looking at my credit cards when I did the audit, I looked back at my statements from previous months. So I looked at my statements, literally like went through and was like, Target spent this much, this place spent this much, Chick-fil-A. Why did I go to Chick-fil-A 20 times? Like, what was I doing? Um, and so I used my statements to do the audit.
Okay.
And then I personally used the Every Dollar app, and I never budgeted before March 2017. My ex tried to teach me how to budget and it didn't work. I was like, this is stupid. And so when I made the decision to get out of debt, I recognized that I was going to have to learn how to, manage and track my budget and my spending. So I downloaded the free Every Dollar app. And that's what I've used ever since. Now I'm going back to like an Excel sheet. So now I use the Every Dollar app and an Excel sheet because I do like to see when I use my Every Dollar app, you can put the amount in and then there's like a note section. And that way I can kind of jot down what stuff did I get so that if ever I need to go back later and look at, if I'm looking at my statement, I'm like, what the heck was I doing at this place? Or what did I buy that was this much money? That if I don't have the receipts, I can see those notes. So yeah, it started out with the statements and then budgeting with the Every Dollar app. But you have to find a way that works for you. Like you have to experiment and commit yourself to the experiment to see what's going to work best for you,
Hmm. Talk about the Every Dollar app. Let people know what it is and how you stumbled upon that.
Yeah, so the Every Dollar app is Dave Ramsey's app. He's a financial educator, right? A lot of people have heard of the Dave Ramsey show. And so he has that app and it's free. They have a paid version where it will connect to your bank account. It's kind of like Mint. I think it's kind of like Mint. I tried to use Mint and I was unsuccessful. I tried to use, I have USAA. I tried to use a budgeting tool through there. I was unsuccessful. So that's why I say you have to commit yourself to experimenting because it may not work perfectly the first time around. Your budget's really not going to ever be perfect and make complete sense. You have to always be flexible. It takes about 3 months to start feeling comfortable with the budgeting process. So I think that people have a tendency to give up early. For me, it was nice to have the app on my phone because as soon as I spend money, I literally will be at the checkout and I will take a few extra seconds just to put it in my phone right away. So I don't have to like have the receipt. And now at the end of the night or at the end of the week, I have to sit on the computer and type all these things in. So for me, it was convenient to have an app. And I guess maybe the layout of the app is easy on my eyes, where it kind of lays out your general categories for you. It literally takes like 10 minutes to make the budget, if not like less as I do it more now, but maybe like 10 to 15 when you first do it. You might take a little bit longer because you may not know what you spend on things. If you are not
Right.
tracking your spending, you don't know that your
Right.
power bill is typically a certain amount or that your phone bills are usually around a certain amount. But once you get the hang of it, it gets really easy to do month to month.
Do you have credit cards now, or did you get rid of them after you paid them off?
Listen, I cut them up May 7th, 6th, 2017. So I cut them up in May of 2017. Actually, one of my credit cards, because they were still open, I didn't close any of the accounts. I just cut up the cards so I couldn't use them. And one of my accounts, actually one of my oldest accounts, Discover card, they emailed me and was like, hey girl, like you haven't used this card in like 3 years. So we're going to close your account. I was like, bye. Like, okay, I don't need you anyway. So,
Thank
you know, I don't use any form of credit. I do not do. My business is debt free. I'm personally debt free. I would prefer not to ever go in debt again. So I think there are a couple cards that are open, but that there's a zero, like I do not use them at all.
Okay. Okay. Do I remember from an earlier podcast that you went through Dave Ramsey's financial peace
Yeah.
program?
And the
So
funny
talk
thing,
about that.
I didn't even go through financial peace until this year, like
Oh,
after I got
okay.
out of debt. So I had seen Dave Ramsey talk at the church I used to attend years ago when I was probably like 18 or 19, bought the book More Than Enough, and I started reading it. And then I didn't finish it, which was a bad idea because the plan was in the back of the book. So, moral of the story: finish the books that you read. Um, I knew of the 7 baby steps, so when I decided to get out of debt and commit myself to that, I was like, okay, I've heard of this. I'm a therapist. To me, cognitive behavioral psychology, behavior, understanding how your mind and your behavior are linked. His plan made a lot of sense to me, so that's why I chose the 7 baby steps. And so I just committed. I'm just, the way that my brain is set up, like I was spearheaded to make that happen. I did have other areas and other transformations that preceded my personal finance transformation. So I already was in the habit of practicing discipline in other areas, and found success in that. So I just applied the same tools to my personal finance journey. So I think that was also helpful as to why I could do it the way that I did it. But I would highly suggest that, if someone is looking for a plan to, different plans and see what might work best for you, what makes the most sense for you. But when I did go through financial peace, I was like, oh, like I learned, even though I was debt free at the time, I learned a lot, and I could put words to things that I was doing and experiencing. And the 7 baby steps, like I was only on number 2. I'm only on number 3 of 7. So there's much more to learn after debt. There's so much more life after debt. And that's why I'm just so passionate about helping people to understand, what roadblocks are in their way so they can get them out of the way and live the life that they desire and deserve.
Right, right. Did you happen to use the snowball method at
Yeah.
any point? Okay.
Yeah.
I know we've had some people in our last debt podcast having questions about the snowball method. So if you would explain what that is and kind of how to use it.
So there are a lot of different options to pay down debt. The snowball method is when the way that I did it, because there might be people that do it different ways. The way that I did it was to list out all of my debts, smallest to largest, and then pay minimums on all of the debts, and any extra money goes on the smallest debt. So if there's $100 debt, there's a $500 debt, there's $1,000 debt. Okay, it goes 500, 1,000. Minimums on all of 3 of them. And then if I have an extra $1,000, I put that on the $100 one, which it would be probably, it would roll over. So I might put 100 on the small one. Then I would put 900 on, or no, well, I guess I would put 500 on the second to smallest one, and then the remainder on the largest one. Hopefully that makes sense. So you list your debts smallest to largest, pay minimums on everything. Extra money goes on the smallest debt, because then as you knock out the smaller debts, your snowball builds, and then you can put more money on the next one. Then you put more money on the next one. And the little wins, that's where the psychology comes into play. It's called positive reinforcement. The little wins that you experience keep you motivated to move forward and stick to your plan. So that's the way that I did it, and I found it to be very helpful.
Were there other tools or resources that you use to either save, budget, and or track expenses?
So, as far as other resources, they weren't maybe like what we would typically think, if that makes sense. Like, one of my resources was praying. Okay, one of my resources was journaling, sleeping, practicing good boundaries, exercising, eating well. So the resources really had to do with what was going to keep me in a state of mind that I could continue to move forward. When I didn't feel like going to work, or when I wanted to spend this money that I was making extra, because I tripled my income, so I was making more money than I've ever made. I could have decided to buy a Birkin bag. I could have decided
Right.
to get on a plane. And so I had to use resources for myself that were going to keep me progressing on the plan that initiated the success that I experienced.
That's amazing that you said that, because it's just like exercise. You can't spot an area to lose the fat. It's an all over body experience, and so it's that. So you mentioned getting your rest and your health and your fitness. All of that is a package, and because you could be paying off debt, but if your mindset isn't disciplined to the point where you're not emotionally spending, for example, you're going to go back to those same bad habits. So that was very great that you mentioned that it's an overall health and wealth experience.
Yeah, I always say at this point that your personal finance journey is inherently a personal growth journey. You don't
Mm-hmm.
get to make progress in your finances without growing spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. You know what I mean? So they go
Right.
together. And when you understand that, then you can optimize your rituals and routines to get the best results, essentially.
Right, right. You talked about discipline. Now you have to tell everybody some of those things that you did, some of those things that I thought was unbelievable, to help you save money and get out of debt. You have to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that the discipline is connected to the why, right? We hear a lot about why, but your why has to be compelling enough, like to move you to tears to some extent. If you were really to start talking about it, it should be so deep that you are affected emotionally, because that's really the only way that you're gonna stay like practice discipline. So there's that. So my why was really deep. And anytime that I felt discouraged, I would just think about my why and think about the repercussions of not practicing the discipline and making a conscious decision to act in alignment with the life I desire and deserve. And so, along with that, I think comes a need to understand that essentially we have to parent ourselves as adults. So I think what happens is, like, when we're a kid, adults have rules and structure and discipline, so we get this bad connotation, we make this bad association with discipline, right? As if it's like being in trouble, it's not fun, it's oppressive. And so I just reframed my definition of discipline as something that works in my favor for my best good. And when we become adults, we leave our parents' home. It's our job to then instill the structure and discipline on ourselves. So I self-imposed bedtime for myself. I self-imposed, exercise and prayer and meditation and all of that stuff, to kind of take the baton from those who raised me to continue to instill within myself the stuff that made me successful as a young person. So yeah, I think that we have to redefine discipline as something that actually gives us a great amount of freedom, and supports our success overall. So I think that we need to change the definition that we use, or start to see
Mhm.
it a different way, so that we can allow it to be a part of our support system.
Just then, talk about some of the steps that you took to actually save the money. For example, if I remember correctly, I think you sold some furniture. I don't remember what all else, but what are some of those things that you did to bring in that extra income?
Yeah. So what Dave Ramsey calls it is a log jam, throwing something in a log jam. So I only made $17,800, I think, the year of 2016, which was quite depressing because I had a whole master's degree, educated and broke.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
So A part of it was because I didn't know my worth. So
Okay.
I wasn't walking in the world professionally, asking for what I'm worth or proclaiming what I'm worth. And so
Wow.
when I decided to pay off all of my debts, it forced me to change my mindset around a lot of things. And in order to start kind of getting the ball rolling, getting the snowball kind of rolling down the hill, was that I needed to have something to throw, like a log jam. So I wasn't making more income at the time, but I was like, how can I generate more income? How can I
Mm.
attract or tap into or find more income? So yeah, I started selling stuff around my house that I didn't use or need. Stuff like, I think I sold my blender for $20. A little candle holder I sold for $10. I sold big furniture like my dresser. I sold my dining room table that I liked. I loved it. I sold my couch. And I was in the process of getting ready to move in with my best friend, who was gracious enough to allow me to become her roommate, which was going to reduce my cost of rent. So
Mm.
yeah, I think that when you decide that you're going to do something and you understand the level of commitment that it's going to take, then it makes it so much easier. I could have been like, oh, I really love this dining table. Like, no, I'm going to keep it. Oh, I'm just going to put it in storage and then I'll use it later on when no, it's going to go. And when I'm debt free, I'm going to get an even better dining table. So I think that, revamping our mindset, understanding what our roadblocks are, we don't act as resourceful as we can be. We think we need resources when really we need to be resourceful with what we have where we're at.
Oh, that's
And that
good.
process helps us to be able to tap into these new creative parts of our brain as far as problem solving. We are
Mhm.
so much more creative and so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for. And that's what happened. I was like, okay, what can I do with what I have where I'm at? I don't need this blender. It can go. Let's
Mhm.
be honest, Jacent, you are not making smoothies every day. Like, you're not about to start now, okay?
Wow. And that's important that you say that too, because when a person, let's just use this scenario. If a person they think their why is very strong.
Hmm.
However, they're not ready to make those uncomfortable decisions, like you were just saying,
Yeah.
sell all these different things that we have sentiment to. Um, Speak to that person. They know that their why truly might make them cry,
Hmm.
but they're not making those actionable steps or those goals in order to start that process like you did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally in the process right now of wrapping up a series on confidence, because what
Mm.
I recognize is that sometimes we have these ideas and these goals and these dreams that are so big, or that they seem like so much more than we can achieve in this moment where we're at right now, that we get discouraged and we doubt our ability to follow through with that or accomplish it. So then we just get paralyzed, we get stuck. The issue with that is that when our thoughts and feelings don't match up with our actions, as a therapist, I'm a teacher, so I have to leave the lessons, that we experience friction. So when you think and feel, oh my gosh, I would really love to be able to go on a trip. I would really love to be debt free. And our action is inaction, right? Continuing to spend on a credit card, not managing our finances, not looking for creative ways to get out of debt, then we experience friction. The only solution is our action has to match up with our thoughts and behavior. So then we have to say, all right, well, I'm going to get on a plan. I'm going to find some support. I'm going to DM Jacent and ask her some questions. I'm going to ask,
Mhm.
Dr. V, who that other person that was talking about debt was.
Right.
Or your actions have to match. Your thoughts and feelings have to match your actions, where you change your thoughts and feelings to say, debt is okay. It's fine that I'm where I'm at right now. I'm not ready to do anything in this moment. And then let it be okay. Don't guilt and shame yourself, but know that you're consciously making that decision. So if you reevaluate, right? what your thoughts are, what your feelings are, and you recognize that there's a space between those two things and your action, then you have a decision to make. You're at a crossroads. That's where I was. And when
Right.
I was 26 in 2017, and I was like, oh no, I'm in debt. I've never wanted to be in debt. I know this is a bad idea. What am I doing? My thoughts and feelings were like, no, you hate this. If you keep doing this, you are going to continue to suffer. If
Mm-hmm.
you change this, then it's going to be hard. Okay. Like it was, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to drive past work. I don't know if anyone's ever been driving to work and they were like, let me just keep going. Let me just, you know what? I'm gonna just drive out of town. But you have to either take a stand for yourself, by taking a chance on doing what you don't know will lead to where you want to be, or keep doing what you're doing and accept it.
Mm-hmm.
Accept it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would
That's
highly suggest that you challenge yourself and at least give yourself a shot. You're more capable than you believe. You are more phenomenal. You're more creative. You are more smart, more intelligent, more worth more than you are giving yourself credit for and accepting right now. And the process, that journey that you start to embark on, when you start peeling back the layers of this, is going to reveal a lot to you. So that's what I would say.
affirmations. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, did you also take on side jobs to help with some income? What did you do?
Yeah, listen. You have, I think it's Lisa Nichols. When she tells her story, she says you have to be willing to be inconvenienced.
Yes.
You have to be willing to be inconvenienced. So for a long time, I worked 7 days a week. But what I told
Mm.
myself was, when a doctor goes into residency, like, they're on call. You know what I mean? They are
Right.
working a lot of hours. Am I a medical doctor? No. But I did go to school for an expertise that if I commit myself to acting like I'm in residency, I'm going to be phenomenal by the end of it.
Right.
And that's why
Right.
I'm a great therapist. I can say that confidently because I've done thousands of hours, literally thousands of hours of working with people. And so I treated myself like I was in residency. If I wasn't working as a therapist, in my private practice, that's why I was teaching at UNLV. That's why I was the on-site mental health professional for a charter school. I was even a production assistant for Hell's Kitchen when they were here last summer. And I was
Mm.
working in my practice teaching. And on my days off from that, I was working 12-hour days on set, sweeping and throwing away trash and sitting to make sure that no one came in and out of a specific door. You have to be willing to be inconvenienced. I've got a master's degree, but it was not beneath me to
Mm.
get a job at the grocery store, to apply at Walmart. It's not beneath me. There is no such thing as something being beneath me. Um, I, it could come from my work ethic and how I grew up. I'm not. I wasn't a citizen. So in high school, if I wanted money, I had to find a way to get some money. So I babysat. I cleaned my coach's house. I was cleaning her house, and I was like, "Thank you." I was gladly. Thank you for employing me. So I think that we have
Right.
to, like, put our pride aside to some extent,
Mm-hmm.
um, and recognize that, like, the poorest person in America is rich to people that live in certain places in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
the opportunities that we have here are abundant in comparison to those of people in other places. I
That's
say
right.
that not to discredit or invalidate anyone's experience or situation, but to just bring up the reality of the situation. So yeah, I had a whole slew of jobs. Like, I probably can't even name all of them right now.
Yeah. That's awesome. When you first took this journey and you sat down and you made your goals, what did your goals look like to tackle the debt? Was it just to get debt free, or did you have goals beyond that?
Listen, my goals are to be at the billionaire brunch, preferably. Like, I mean, the sky's the limit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and if I reach for the goal and I don't quite hit it, it's okay. So we can't come up with goals and then not work toward them because we feel like, oh, well, that thing's never going to happen. That's not realistic. Like, of course, let's be realistic, but also allow ourselves to dream. So, to be absolutely honest, yeah, my dreams are to be like to be a multimillionaire by the time I retire. Now I'm like, it would be nice if it was in the next 5 years. So all of my goals I design through desire. I design
Okay.
my goals through desire. And so when I was 26 and I was at a crossroads, I said, what do I desire? What would really make me feel peace of mind and whole and stable? And it was to be debt free. Okay.
Mm,
How much debt are we in? Let's see. $70,000. All right, when would it be nice? When would it be really cool to be out of debt by? Because you have to decide on a date. We can't just be like, yeah, we're gonna get out of debt, and then just like
right.
put an extra $5 and like and not decide and claim something, claim a date. I said I would like to be debt free by the time I'm 30. I think that would be kind of cool, you know? And then I can invest and save and travel and whatever for the rest of my life after that. So
Right.
my dreams are and my goals are designed through my desire. And when I do that, my brain goes to work getting creative on how to make it happen. So I was like, okay, I was 26 at the time, going on 27, and it was like 3 years. 70,000 divided by 3 years, divided by 12 months, gave me my spreadsheet, gave me my outline for what I would need to do. And I'm telling you, I did not make that money at the time, but it helped me to understand what kind of jobs I need to be looking for. Can I keep my two jobs and find something extra? Do I need to get rid of them, or do I had to get extra on top of what I was already doing? So I had two part-time jobs, and I got a full-time job on top of that, and that's how I was able to triple my income in order to meet my numbers. So I decided based on the end result first, reverse engineered it, and then made it happen.
Jacent, you just broke down that in such a practical way. You have to say that again. You took your debt amount, you divided it by the number of years that you set for yourself, which was 3 years, and then you said you divided that again by 12 months. Oh my gosh.
So I I think I need to do it again next week. I did it on my Instagram. I told people to send me their numbers and that I would do that breakdown for them. So essentially, right, like I'm going to do some math right now so that we can have a good context of it. 70,000 divided by 3 years is $23,333.33. That divided by that's how much you would need to pay a year, right, to be out of
Okay.
debt in 3 years. Divide
Uh-huh.
that by 12 months in a year, which is $1,944.44. So that's how much I would have to pay per month for 3 years. I think that's what, 36 months? I hope.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, like I'm a therapist, like I don't do math, which is funny. Other than this basic arithmetic right now, no.
Right,
But yeah,
right.
for 36 months, I would have to pay $1,900 40 or $1,944.44.
Okay.
And then you could keep breaking that down by, right, like 4 weeks. That means I need to make $486.11 a week for however many weeks that is in 3 years. I'm
Right.
not doing that math,
Right.
but
Right. Right.
well, you don't have to, but if you can play with it. So if someone is in $70,000 worth of debt, and let's say they divide it by 5 years, that means you have to pay $14,000 a year for
Mm-hmm.
5 years. Divide that by 12 months is 1,100. Oh my goodness, guys, $1,166.67. And so you can play with the numbers to make it manageable and realistic for you where you're at. I was like, I'm going to make it happen. I'm gonna find where
Right.
the income gonna come from because I want to be debt free by the time I'm 30. But if it's like, well, my income is this X amount, okay. So how long is it going to take you to be able to pay off your debt with your income being that stable and you've looked at your budget and you've tightened it up as much as you possibly could? And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's flexible in that you can tailor it to your specific situation, but you have to address your mindset, you have to address your budget and your spending, and you have to address your income in order to understand what formula is going to work best for you.
Right. Man, you just helped somebody.
I hope
You
so. If
just
you have
helped
questions,
somebody.
reach out.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring them up soon. So let's talk. Let's switch over to mindset. Did you always have that mindset as a high achiever, or was it developed because of some tragic event, or the fact that this debt was, in your face and you just had to do something about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm African, so that's a stereotype. That we happen to be like high achieving, and our families have high expectations for our lives and for us professionally and whatnot. So it definitely was something that was cultivated and developed all throughout my life, by virtue of my culture, I think. Now, specifically for my debt-free journey, yeah, I did have, some experiences that kind of led to the place that I was at. And so, like I mentioned, I had gotten married right before grad school and ended up getting divorced while I was in grad school to become a marriage and family therapist. So all kinds of fun, guilt and shame to go along with that, right? Um, and then my father passed away months after I got divorced. And so that's when the grief storm hit. Like I said, my mom passed away when I was about 5 years old. So loss was not something that was a stranger to me. But I think that combination of back-to-back losses made it really challenging for me, in a lot of different ways, right? Dealing with grief and loss. And during that time, I was not being mindful of, my spending and what I was doing with money. And what I recognized when I finally got on my debt-free journey was a lot of things that I was doing to cope before. And so I recognized that I was an emotional eater. So
Mm,
I had also gained weight while I was in grad school. Not that gaining weight is bad, but for me, it was a result of negligence to myself. Like I was negligent to myself while I was grieving. And that was one of the results, that when I got on my debt-free journey, I'm like, whoa, because I was telling myself, no, I can't eat out. And I'm like having a temper tantrum, like, what you mean you can't eat out? I want to eat out. I want some churros from Jack in the Box. And so I'm saying no. And I'm like, whoa, what's coming up here? Like, what are these feelings? And so a lot came up from recognizing that I was not coping as productively and healthy as I could have. And I had to start employing some new coping skills, right? And so that's why I say it's inherently a personal growth journey. You're going to be stretched, you're going to be flexed, okay? You're going to have to explore some different areas of your life because our money beliefs are deep. They are real, real deep. So yeah, the discipline, something that I've kind of learned and applied in other places, right? School, I'm great. Work, fabulous, or whatever. So I just transferred those skills to my personal finance journey after those series of losses.
and it's funny you say that because most times we do pour all of our energy into school or work or even other people, but when
Mm,
it comes to ourselves and our self-care, it takes a back seat.
yeah, that's tough. You got to address it, has to be addressed. And that's where we have to get really honest with ourselves about what we've been doing and then forgive ourselves and move on. I think what happens, we start beating ourselves up and then we live in this place where we just keep beating ourselves up. And after you acknowledge whatever lesson you need to take, move on. Like,
Right,
you need
right,
to acknowledge it and keep it pushing, because after a while it doesn't serve you to just beat yourself for whatever reason, like, oh man, I should have made different decisions when I was 18 and I saw Dave Ramsey. Yep, sure shoulda, would have been a millionaire by now, okay? But
right,
I can't let that keep me from making progress now and moving forward. You need to transmute and translate that energy into something that works in your favor.
right. I have a question that has been hard for some people to answer. What means more to you, money or freedom, and why?
That's not hard to answer. Freedom. Free. What? Money is pieces of paper with dead people's faces on them. Like, money is just a representation of an exchange of energy. So
Mm,
to me, honestly, I quit my job during my debt-free journey because money or freedom. I was like, I'm going to Africa. I have a nonprofit and I have a project that I'm doing. Y'all gonna give me this 3 weeks off or nah? And they were like, nah. And I was like, bye.
oh, wow.
So because but it comes down to, like, do you have an abundance mindset or do you have a scarcity mindset? Because
Mm,
if you are living in abundance, I got rid of that job and I found something else. There's
Okay.
always going to be something else. If you have an abundance mindset, if you have a scarcity mindset, you're going to see and experience lack and limitation. I don't know if anybody has glasses that's watching, anybody's used a Snapchat filter or an Instagram filter. Your lens is your filter. You either have an abundance lens or you have a scarcity lens, and you are going to see the world through that lens, whether you like it or not. So you got to figure out if you got the lens you want, or if you need to trade it in for a different one. So freedom all the way, and everything else will fall into place as it should.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, you mentioned that you were a first generation immigrant from Uganda. Talk about that and what your financial success means for the legacy that you pass down.
See, this is the stuff that would make me emotional. Um, so man, my Jaja is like 67, 68 now, I think. And to this day,
Okay.
she still works.
Wow.
And she just lost her mom, who was 96,
Okay.
a couple of weeks back. And my Judja's Judja, right, the 96-year-old, lived in the village, in Uganda. And I thankfully got to meet her last year, in the spring when I went to Uganda. So if I would have requested my time off at the job that I was at, and they told me no, and I stayed, I wouldn't have gone on the trip, and I wouldn't have met her,
Oh, wow.
and not seen her again. You know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I say freedom over everything, because things like that are irreplaceable. Like
Right.
we can't buy things like that. And so we're in the process of, and I get to contribute to, right, retiring my Judja and sending her back to Uganda set. You know what I mean? Like, you want a
Mm-hmm.
house, Judja? Cool. We'll build you one. You want to live in the city? Great. We'll find you an apartment. And so what we have to do is recognize that we live in the context of community. And so to some extent, we have to lend our gifts to our community. But we can't do that if we're stuck. Being in
Mm-hmm.
debt is being stuck. It's a low level issue. Some people never get past this low level issue. It's only number 2 on the 7 baby steps. There are
Mm-hmm.
so many things past that one thing that you can do. And I have a bonus kid now, right? I didn't have kids. I wasn't married when I decided to get out of debt. Now I've got an 8-year-old bonus kid. And when I told her, we were talking about being out of debt, teaching her money lessons and whatever, she was like, "Congratulations." I was like, "Oh, thanks." I was like, "You're debt free too." And she's like, "What?" I was like, "Do you owe anybody money or anything?" And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "Yeah, so you're debt free." And she lit up. She's like,
Wow.
"I like that, feels good." And I'm like, "Yeah." And and tell me right now that you never go, I'll make her sign a contract. You ain't never gonna go in debt, girl. Okay. And so the way that it can transform your life, I'm married now, right? I'm crazy. So I told my partner he had to pay off his debt before we got married. But he did it. So now we were able to get married, and money is not an issue. It is not something that we fight about. It's not something that we're concerned about. Our communication around our finances is seamless. We can enjoy our time with each other. We don't have arguments. Like, we don't fight. It
Wow. So
will
you
change
so
your
you
whole
got
life.
married. So you got married since your podcast with Anthony O'Neill.
Mhm.
Oh well, congratulations!
Thank you.
Because I was ready to ask you questions about debt and dating. Because at the time you were not married, and you had me rolling with your comment about the question he asked about you being free, and uh, if you met a guy who had debt, what would be your deal breakers? Would you even date him?
I dated somebody in debt, but I didn't marry somebody in debt. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, now I have I don't know if I want to say privilege. Like, I feel like a lot of, especially women, are putting their life on a clock and saying, "Well, I need to be married by this time. I want to have this many kids by this time," and really kind of pigeonholing themselves by a clock and not really looking at their life and where they're at and how they can best prepare for that thing to come into their life. Like, your life is already written for you. So you need to just do right now what is going to help you best usher in whatever that stuff is. I didn't know 3 years ago that I was going to meet who my husband is now. But I was like, if ever God blesses me with the opportunity, how can I best prepare right now to be a good wife, to be
Right.
a good mother? Not because being out of debt makes you good, but that I have more energy and that I
Right.
have more spiritual resilience because of my debt free journey. I have more discipline to show up in my relationships more authentically because of the time that I invested while I was single. So I
Right.
think people need to stop wasting their single time worrying about not having somebody so and so and blah, blah, blah. Get to work. And in the
Right.
process of getting to work, those things will naturally come your way if it's supposed to be for you. It's already written, so I don't know why you're worrying. Okay, it's
Right.
easier said than done, but that's why you want to have community and support. Dating with debt. I think I'm gonna do an episode on that in and of itself because I had all kinds of fun questions about it. But it's possible, but you want to be intentional. I also didn't want to just date frivolously. I ain't got time to just be out here dating. What else? Like, no.
Right.
So I put my boundary up. I said, if you are thinking seriously about being with me, this is what I seriously need you to do in order for us to be able to keep
Right.
going. And if not, no harm, no foul. You're still cool. Like, we're still cool. But I think that we need to reevaluate and stick to the life that we desire and deserve, because people are out here settling and then they're unhappy about their choice to settle.
Right. Right. Um, I have to go here since we're approaching the holidays. What are your thoughts and tips on holiday spending?
Yeah, have a plan. Stick to the plan. That's just, have a plan and stick to the plan, people. There's nothing wrong with taking a hiatus on the spending part of the holidays. Just because you don't spend doesn't mean that you can't still celebrate. And this is where it becomes a personal growth journey, because if you are in a tizzy because you can't spend some money, then we need to reevaluate this when it's supposed to
Mhm.
be a holiday that is about some other stuff. So I
Right.
feel like you need to look at your situation, and hopefully you prepared before now, because it's getting late, right? Hopefully you would have prepared before now, but you need to have a budget for your spending. You need to have some honest conversations, maybe with people. You need to tell the kids, hey, y'all, we're making cookies for Christmas. That's going to be
Mhm.
our Christmas presents this year. Because
Mhm.
when you take care and manage your finances now, then you can take them ATVing in Mexico next year, or whatever the case may be. Then you can freaking buy I don't know, the Rockefeller tree if you want to down the line. And so I think that we have to recognize that we're also communicating and teaching through our modeling. So if we're stressed around the holidays because of spending, kids may or may not know why, right? But kids
Right.
usually, they're pretty smart. They kind of know what's going on. We're teaching them that. We're teaching them
Mhm.
that they should use a credit card to go spend on the holidays. We're teaching them that it's okay, right, to go over your budget or to whatever, be strapped for cash around a certain time of year, because that's just what you should expect, because you have to go to the party with gifts for everybody. No,
Right.
if you want me at the party, my presence is the present. Okay. Accept it or don't accept it, or don't invite me. And my feelings are not hurt. So I think
Yeah.
that we just have to come up with a plan and then stick to the plan.
Yeah. I don't spend. I don't spend. We buy things for people. Sometimes they already have the thing that you're buying
Right.
for them, or they don't want it, they don't like it, they don't use it. And for what? For what? Oh,
We don't do it here. We don't. It's just plain and simple. But we do get to do other really fun. We do fun things all year long, especially now that we're debt free. Like, you know
right.
what I mean? Like, Christmas is not the only time. Just like the Valentine's Day. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to wait for a specific day to have certain experiences. I would much prefer to put my stock in the energy and the purpose behind something, as
Right.
opposed to the commercialized parts of it.
Right. I agree. I agree. Let's take a quick question from the audience. Regine asked, "Did you include your school loans in that amount as well?" I
Yeah.
think I think
So
she was talking about the amount when you broke down. your amount divided by the 3 years divided by the 12 months?
So in the baby steps, you're supposed to write down all of your debts. You're supposed to baby step 0, right, which isn't really a thing, is to make sure all your bills are current. So your your utilities, your food, your shelter, your transportation are current. Then you can go to baby step 1, which is saving $1,000 of an emergency fund that you do not touch. It's an that thing should be locked up somewhere else. You leave it alone unless you are in dire need. Okay. Some people will save a $500 emergency fund if your income is lower, but you need a buffer between you and life happening. Then you do your debt snowball, which is listing all your debts, smallest to largest, except for your house. So you include your car, you include your credit cards, your student loans, personal loans, medical bills. I'm trying to think of any other kind of debt that could come up. All of your debt except for your house. And you pay that off in baby step 2. And then you increase your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months once you're out of debt, excluding your house. And then the process keeps going. So yes, I did include my student loans.
Gotcha. Let's see. Ernest says he would say freedom, the money to freedom question as well, because freedom is a peace of mind without being stressed out. I totally agree.
Shalom.
Totally agree. He also says that that this is one of God's commands, that we owe man nothing but to love him. Absolutely. Let's see. Great discussion, great lesson on financial freedom. So, Jacent, I've got 2 more things for you. I was really intrigued when I heard about your nonprofit. Can you share that with us? Exactly what it entails?
Yeah, it's called Incubo. And my cousin and I started. Her name's actually also Jacent. So there's that. And we, are both first generation, third culture women. And we never had the conversation until we were adults about that experience. I don't know if we had words to be able to kind of talk about it, but it can be kind of an isolating experience. It comes with its own slew of ways of going through life, because as a first generation kind of third culture kid, you don't really fit in anywhere. We don't fit in Uganda because we don't dress the same. We don't talk. Even if we speak Luganda, we have accents because we speak English, right? And in America, we don't really fit here because we grew up in our household with Ugandan culture. So, I'm Black, obviously, right? But when I would hang out with Black kids growing up, their culture was completely different than my culture. So it created this feeling of just not fitting in and kind of wondering, like, it makes you question your identity and is there something wrong with me? Or, where am I supposed to go? And so what we recognize is that we both had that experience and that a lot of other people have that experience. So the nonprofit was born out of wanting to connect youth to their country of origin. And we wanted to start with Uganda because we're from Uganda. And in that process, we ended up taking master's students from National University last year to Uganda, and they did, and that was to help fund to be able to send the youth going back. So we did it was pretty much like community service and cultural retreat last year for 3 weeks, where we took them. They volunteered in the hospital. We went and served in the village and met with families. And then we also got to do, other fun stuff where we went to the animal preserve. So we were like walking around with elephants. Some of our attendees decided to go gorilla trekking. So they went on a separate weekend trip that was separate from us, but you can go gorilla trekking in Uganda. So that's a thing. And they went and saw gorillas in their natural habitat. I was like, wow. So it was really cool. And we were supposed to go back in March, and then the world shut down. So we're postponed for now, but we're definitely going to go back and keep building that for sure.
If you would just keep me posted with your next trip.
Yes, of
Absolutely.
course. Come join us. It's gonna be so fun.
I will. That's why I'm asking. keep me posted and I will help share that information. But I love opportunities like that. So definitely keep me posted.
We'll do it.
Um, so last thing is give us any final remarks or tips or advice on becoming debt free, whatever your heart wants to share.
Yeah, I would say that the way that I put it recently was being in debt is like going to Disneyland. But, when you're driving up to the park, you see all of the attractions, the roller coasters, you get excited, and then you get out of the car and then you have to get in line. And being in debt
Mm-hmm.
is like being in line. At Disneyland, you just want to get your churro and your turkey leg, okay?
Yeah.
Depending on who you are. And when you get past the line, right? When you get your ticket and go into the park,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different things that you get to enjoy. So if you
Mm-hmm.
haven't made a decision to get out of debt, you need to. I would highly encourage you to come in the park. Let's hang out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, because when you're in the park, I don't think anyone has ever rented out a park just to be by themselves. People have rented out the park to hang out with their family, but amusement parks aren't fun alone. So there are
Mm-hmm.
people in the park waiting for you to get there. I'm waiting. Okay, come hang out. It's always more fun together. So to me, I don't want you stuck outside the park in line, which is
Right.
being in debt. I want you to be able to come into the park and get your map out and be like, "What?" Because
Right.
the limits are non-existent for you once you get past your debt. And if you need
Mm-hmm.
help, send me a DM. Come holla at me. Okay, I got you. And let's stay connected so that you can have support in that process.
Absolutely. Tell them how to get stay in contact with you.
I'm most active on Instagram. So that's Jacent's Gems, JACENTSGEMS. That's also the name of my podcast, available on all major platforms. And I just talk specifically about, personal finance. I have interviews weekly, and I also will talk about relationships and how to optimize and be successful in our relationships. So, yeah, find me on Instagram. And when you come over, I'll probably say hi before you do because I treat my internet home like my house. When people come over, okay, we are respectful and we speak to them. So if I don't speak to you for some reason, then that means there's something going on. Send me a DM so that we can have a conversation.
And she does. Jacinta is very welcoming. I listen to her lives on Instagram all the time. So, Jacinta, I have expended the time with you. It's a pleasure talking with you. Again, congratulations on your marriage. Congratulations on your debt freedom. And I thank you so much for accepting this invite. And I hope to have you back soon.
Thank you.
So we have no more questions from the audience. So we're gonna say goodbye and God bless to everyone. And let's tackle this debt and proclaim that I am transformed. We're gonna end the broadcast and you hold tight. 1